Hello again, everyone. Welcome you to the A4Q World Congress, now together with Kari Kakkonen. Hello, Kari. Kari is the Director of Node Solutions in Helsinki, Finland, and the author of Children's and Testing at Dragons Out. He will talk about the encouraging of children into software testing, which will be a big topic in the market in the future years. So I hope you all enjoy Kari's presentation, and I will give over to you.
Thank you, Chris. It's really great to be here talking to you about encouraging children into software testing. So that's my topic today. So let's jump in. So that was a very nice and kind introduction from Chris. So thanks very much. As you notice, I've seen a lot in software testing, and the latest things includes writing a book about software testing, Dragons Out book for children, and my talk is around that topic. Even for you can see, I have done many other things. To the brief backgrounder from the company Knowit, where I work most of the time, big Nordic ICT company, including lots of software testing services. And obviously, I've been very active with ICTQB, 6 years in the executive committee. My term in the exec has just closed, but now I'm just a regular volunteer. But that's my background. Let's talk about the content of today. So in the presentation, I'll first talk about how children learn in general, and that is a lead into the book project introduction. How was the book created? And then a little bit more about learning testing through fantasy. So I'll explain this idea of using analogies to understand what testing is. And in the end, I'll also give all of you some homework. Design your own dragon, draw your own dragon. And there's also a competition there. I'll be collecting the best dragon drawings, and I have a draw later for the dragon drawings, and the winner will win one of my English books. Anyway, let's start. So how children learn. So while planning to have a book project and during the writing, and also later on designing some supporting material like presentations to schools and to children, I've been talking to lots of educators, lots of teachers. I also did some research on books and the internet about how children actually learn. I do know a little bit of that also from personal experience. I have a 7-year-old son, and it's very fascinating to see how he learns different things. But the key point is that children learn in really multiple ways. So stories and examples often work very well. It provides stories provide often a chance to identify with some idol, some hero. Also, they learn in their play, and they see somebody they identify with. They can think about that person as an idol, and that leads into imitating. Imitation is a good learning habit. Trying to do what somebody else does. Then we have rhymes and songs. So some kids really like to learn through a musical way. Like my son was just learning English words through a song in the school. That's quite typical. Then we are playing and games. Obviously a fun thing for kids. If they were asked what kind of learning style would you choose, they would probably choose games because it's fun to game. So gamification in general it's a big thing. Then there's exploring, just trying things, erring sometimes, learning from that. Then there's a fact about simplicity. So if you can put something in simple terms, it's easier to learn. and that's very crucial in children learning, because they have less capacity of learning compared to adults. The younger they are, the more simpler you need to be. Then there's repetition, so repeating is always good. And one form of learning is remembering. So once you start remembering something, you at some point notice that you actually know this content quite well. And final one there is learning through boundaries. So this is what adults, of course, do. They set boundaries. You can do all of this, but you can't cross this boundary. You can't do this. So trying to cross the boundaries and finding their boundaries, this is a good way of learning as well. So lots of different ways of learning. Some of them work better if you try to put them into learning software testing, some not that well. But I think I've actually managed to include all of these styles in my approach. In general, lots of research says that children learn always through multiple ways. So it's always, I think it also carries to adults, it's always better to learn using multiple strategies. Read something, try something out, play a little bit. That sort of thing always works better. So trying to have exercises, experiment things is crucial if you want children to learn testing. Concerning storytelling, and obviously this is my key focus because I'm an author of a book. I was wondering if storytelling actually works for everybody, or is it only for people who like books? But actually it is. So research says that everybody gets something out of storytelling, not only those who read. Because if you are a visual learner, you can think about the pictures, form mental pictures based on what you hear or what you read. Obviously, in a book, there are also pictures for. Then we have auditory learners, so somebody reads aloud to somebody, that's a story, heard story, and again, works for those people. But even kinesthetic learners can learn because they can hook into the emotions that they hear in the story. So it's a great approach, which is why and I was thinking, how can I get across to kids with testing topics? A book was quite an obvious choice. Then there's the question of what kind of age is best to get these testing ideas to children. And this piece of theory here suggests that it is around 11 or 12 when children start to think about something more complex and learn more complex and more abstract ideas. And I think testing is something like this. It's not the obvious way of do this, do that, which could be a way to teach coding, for example. What the coding classes for children are really about logic, about doing things in sequence and repeating them. Testing can be more difficult because you need to think about in different those abstraction, trying to understand the testing object from different points of view. So 11 to 12, and then that this fact then dictated a lot about the target group of my book, and then the idea of what kind of language, what kind of level of stories it can have. So let's take a look at the book project a little bit. Why am I doing this? It goes back to attending James Whitaker's workshop on storytelling several years ago. That was a really great class. And James talked about storytelling and imagination and creativity and things like that. And he's also written a storytelling manifesto, which is here. I will read it aloud. Every person has a story. Every cause needs a storyteller. Learn to be a storyteller, because unless you are a candidate for a reality show, no one else is going to tell your story for you. So tell us a story. Tell us a good story. And let that good story be one part of a symphony of stories that makes this world a better place. So, my course is testing, and I truly want to tell the story of testing also to children. So, this is all about that. So, my mission is to give and expand the knowledge of testing to all directions, but also to children, also to younger people in general. We have lots of testing education nowadays in universities compared to some decades ago. But if we look at children, if we look at children of age around 10, for example, there's not really that much testing. There are coding schools, there are coding classes, there are coding clubs in the schools, outside the schools. Um, Coding sometimes practiced in math classes, in biology classes, natural science classes, also a little bit in this sort of cross-functional learning. It's also in mother language classes. Anyway, in many classes, coding is there, testing is not there. Of course, there's always some testing when you learn to code, but nothing testing specific, not really. So I do think we need to tell about testing to children as well. So this is my mission. I think what it does, it contributes to better awareness of testing. It will create more testing professionals on the longer run, and it will also probably make those all new coders who learn coding in schools already. It will make them better coders because they also know how to test. So this is the idea, and of course you could teach testing to children in multiple ways. My approach is to combine a book for about testing for children and also couple that with some presentations that can be used in classes. So that's what I'm doing. The book project has been running now for a few years. Maybe the initial spark was actually Linda Liukas's book on coding for kindergarten kids, maybe first class kids, so age of 7 or so, called Hello Ruby, and that fact, especially a Finnish author, Linda. So of course it was also a very big thing in the Finnish market where I'm from, and that made me think, we need to have something like that for testing. But I didn't start immediately. My idea took a few more years when I actually attended James's session, as I mentioned. Anyway, an opportunity when presented. We started talking about a sabbatical year with my family, going to Lapland for a year, taking time off from work, doing things with family. And also a challenge to do something that otherwise there wouldn't be that much time. So I wrote the book. I wrote it first in Finnish, and a year later I translated it in English. Actually, less half a year later. So in 2019, the Finnish manuscript was there. I ran it through many pilot readers, both kids and adults, got great feedback, iterated the text, and finally the manuscript was there. I also contacted Adrian Sell for a nice illustration to the book. Again, we iterated the illustration, what kind of dragons, what kind of characters there would be, and then this whole nice set was there. And then I also started contacting the Finnish publishers at that time. I also ran a crowdfunding campaign in 2019 to get funds for the illustration, and managed to do that. Around Christmas and January, so in early 2020, I translated the book in English and started connecting English publishers immediately. And so at that time, both Finnish and English publishers were running side by side. The Finnish publisher is Avine, and the English publisher is Austin Macaulay. The Finnish book has been published on December last year, 2020, and at the moment, Austin Macaulay expects that to be able to publish my book around end of May. That's what they said last time. I was just reviewing the layout some weeks ago, so it looks good. Also, something to mention is the school donation campaign. So while doing all this work, I also marketed, of course, the book quite a bit, and did some donation campaign, trying to get IT companies to donate books into schools, and it was a good and great success. The Finnish one is pretty much done, but the English one is still running, because the English book will be published in a few months. So that's the book project in short. Let's go forward. So I wrote all of it, and Rian drew all the interesting illustration. There's also a presentation out there, which is at our website, dragonslight.com. It's Creative Commons licensed. It is related to book, but separate item. It can be used independently to anybody who you want to tell about testing in a fun way. Meant for the children, of course, but actually it can be used for anybody. Now I'd like to tell you a little bit more about how fantasy works for learning testing. So it's of course quite an interesting, even provocative idea, and I started to think like that probably many years ago when I first started using analogies in my blogs. So I've always liked to make comparisons, take this fact from everyday life, and then in IT world or testing world, it would mean this. So when I was planning how can I get the testing message through the children, I tried different ideas, but fairly soon an idea of a dragon came to my mind, and then I was thinking, okay, how dragon, where does the dragon fit? And I was thinking, okay, dragon could be the defect, and then you need to get rid of defects. So knights are usually killing dragons, right? So okay, so knights are needed, and then who are knights? Well, knights would be then, of course, developers and testers, because they get rid of defects. They find defects, they remove them. So that fits into a fantasy story really nice. So most of the time in a book, there's a new dragon appearing, and then people are finding it, sometimes with knights, sometimes without the knights, and then they are getting rid of the dragon at some point, which works nice in a fantasy story, but also reflects to the real life of finding defects and removing defects very nicely. So I've took a few examples, character examples, analogy examples from a book here. So here's first an unknown dragon. So there are many dragons, of course. There are many types of defects. So the unknown dragon here is a red dragon, medium-sized, quite difficult to find, but once you find it, fairly easy to get rid of. It doesn't fly, although it has small wings. It breathes fire. It eats lambs. So this is the unknown dragon, and the comparison that this is doing is a memory leak. So it represents a memory leak in software, which is quite similar if you think about it. So it can be very difficult to find it, but once you actually finally locate the defect into a certain row, you'll be able to make a change quite easily. But finding it is very difficult. Sometimes even noticing that something is wrong can be difficult. But it could be also very obvious, because if a software crashes, obviously something is wrong. So, annoying dragon mineral leak. There are also lots of robin dragons, which are gray or green. They are small, they can be large, they can be from anything, from easy to find to hard to find. Similarly, getting rid of can be easy or hard. Some fly, some don't, and so on. Generally, they like to steal food and treasure. This is what dragons do. And because this is the typical dragon, this is also the typical defect, which is a functional defect. So most of the defects that people would find, testers would find, are actually functional defects. So they can be low, medium, high in severity. And again, you need to find them, you need to fix the difficult ones, and maybe accept the less difficult ones. So it works nicely in a comparison there. Then there are dragons which are a little bit different. This one here, which I chose an example, is a black dragon, a mean black dragon. It does fly. It steals food and treasure, and the signature feature is that it is doing it without being detected. Now, what kind of defect is that? It is, of course, security defect. So trying to get into the system, utilizing some vulnerability in the system, stealing some information or even money from a system, that would be the security defect, and utilizing a security defect. And so security testing is then the solution, what you want to do, and it's again a nice comparison of non-functional testing type. But this one I chose then for the presentation. It's because it's different again from the others. So this is underground dragon. It doesn't really fly. It's a bit more maybe like a snake, still recognizably a dragon. It likes to crawl around in tunnels, find easy food in cellars of castles and villages. Fairly hard to get rid of, even though it's easy to find, because you're losing food from the cellar. So this is what the dragon does in the story. And from a testing point of view, this would be hardware defect. You don't really notice what's wrong. Is it the hardware or the software that's wrong? But there's something wrong. But if you start looking into it in more detail, testing it from different aspects, you'll notice that it's probably a hardware problem, and then that can be fixed by replacing the hardware or adding to the hardware. Many approaches there. Anyway, something that especially embedded software developers and testers often notice. To some extent, everybody notices this. So, underground dragon. I also have a nice dragon. It was there quite naturally, but I was also very happy to have it, because when I was talking to my pilot readers, with children out of those pilot readers, many of them, including my son, said that dragons are nice. Why do you need to get rid of all the dragons? Why do you need to kill the dragons? I like dragons, and I was happy to say that there can be also good dragons. There can be good defects. They are not all bad. So also in the story, there is a nice dragon, which is of course easy to find and easy to get rid of. There's no need to get rid of because it's not really doing any harm. It's living with people. It's even helping people. Then you ask, what is this? What can it be? And actually, there can be many types of nice dragons, but this nice dragon is a defect seeding, or you can also say mutation testing defect. So the developer or the tester actually put the defect into a system on purpose. And the idea then is that once you have found all these seeded defects in the code, then that gives a good likelihood that you have also found all the defects in the code. So it's really a test coverage measure, a test technique in that sense to help you decide what's the right amount of tests, right number of different kind of tests. And it can be quite useful. It's not your most used technique in testing, but it's still a good and effective technique if you know how to use it well. And obviously the story, it brings a nice flavor of having a nice dragon available. All right, so lots of dragon comparisons, because lots of the testing work actually works around with defects and finding defects and removing defects. Actually, the main structure of the book is about introducing different defects and how to find them. But who does it? So I mentioned that knights do it. Here I grouped all the programmers on testers together as a development team, like agile methodologies say, which also works very, very well in the story. So there can be different kind of knights. Some knights are better at finding dragons, some are better at killing them. There's always a knight that has the proper weapon to kill a dragon. So the knights represent developers, development team, which could be programmers or testers. And then they build the software and they test the software. In the story, they build castles against dragons, and they kill dragons when they harass the castles. But as in real life, it's not always the testers or the development team who finds all the defects. It can be also your typical users. So in the fantasy world, any villager, any person in a world of fantasy can actually be a dragon slayer, or at least a person who can spot a dragon, find a dragon, see a dragon somewhere in the horizon, or maybe just notice it harassing a village. So children are like that. And you remember I mentioned that being able to identify with somebody is very useful learning for children, and that's why some of the heroes, some of the characters in the story are children who bit by bit learn more about dragons, and gradually they actually become knight apprentices. There are also other types of villagers, just adults, village elders, so on, who help the development team. So in the storyline, they would then support the knights in battling with the dragons. So users, of course, can test on purpose. You can ask them to be part of beta testing or pilot testing and so on, or sometimes accidentally bugs are out there in the production environment, and when the users find the defect that was maybe supposed to be found by the development team. That's life, and that happens, and then the team just needs to be quick. There's also a particular type of a villager, which is a hunter. Hunter has different arrows, spears, other kind of weapons that can be used against dragons. Even for normally, it would be used for something else, like hunting. So hunters quite nicely represent a technical support function, those people who maintain the software that the development team created. As you know, sometimes they can be very effective in fixing defects on their own. They don't need to go to the development team all the time. Sometimes they will do it. They need the developers to actually fix some big problem in the code, but very often they are on their own. And so hunters do the same thing in the story. we don't always need knights. If you take hunters into the team of developers, you end up having a better team. And that also has an analogy to software testing, which is having a DevOps team, where you have all the required knowledge to create and run the system. So also a nice analogy there, even though we are not diving very deep into that. Then we also have lords and ladies. So fantasy story always has, of course, castles, and castles would have a lord or lady running the castles. So similarly, when you have a software, somebody needs to pay for the software. Somebody orders the software from the development team. So that could be product owner or just generally management of a company. So they would require something, define what the software should do, and they would need to talk to the development team, not just require something and then go away. So in a similar fashion, in the story, lords and ladies actually participate in the work with the knights. They talk to each other quite often. And finally, there are sages. So sages represent in the story people who help the lords and ladies, and also the knights, also the villagers. They help everybody. So that's a nice comparison into experts in different fields of expertise in IT world. So you would have usability experts, security experts, performance experts, other experts as well, but these would be, I think, the typical experts. And the experts are usually on some narrow topic where the agile team or the DevOps team or the development team in general can't know everything. So they would actually need to call in an expert of this narrow topic, like let's say usability. And then that expertise would be available for them when they need. So again, it works nicely in a comparison to real world. Okay, so that was how I've used fantasy to explain testing concepts. And as you notice, also development project concepts in general, software development, agile, DevOps concepts as well. So it's a little bit of everything with testing focus on the top. Because testing is not an isolated thing. Testing is part of software development. So this is my choice. I think that's how it fits nicely. Okay, last bit here is designing your own dragon, so your homework. So what I would like you to do, you don't have to, but this is a fun thing to do, and also an example of how I engage with children into learning. So one of the exercises is exactly this one. So you draw a dragon that represents a defect. So you start by look at the right of the screen. You start by thinking of an interesting defect that you have encountered. How would you characterize? How would you describe that defect? Maybe write down those few words. Once you then have that, okay, it's a big defect, for example, then think about a dragon that it would be if it was a dragon. A big defect would probably be a big dragon, and so on. So try to put the defect characteristics into the dragon. You can still be just writing some words, but then step 3 here is that you actually draw the dragon. Here, when I've been teaching this exercise to some schools, I need to emphasize you don't need to be perfect in drawing. The main idea is to carry through your idea of a defect, how it would look like as a dragon. Of course, it's if your dragon looks nice as well, but the idea is the important part. and spend time drawing. Maybe during the rest of my discussion here, maybe during the rest of the day. Email it to me. Let's say this week. Next week, I will then have a draw amongst those people who send the drawing to me. So the email address is there, kari.kakkonen@dragonsout.com, and the lucky winner then will receive the English edition of the Dragons Out book about software testing. Then it's published, so most likely in June or something like that. So there's your exercise. Go ahead, start drawing. And that was the end of my presentation. Now we have some minutes left for some Q&A. So all yours. And if you want to connect to me in LinkedIn, go ahead. There's my LinkedIn address as well.
Thank you so much, Kari. That was a great presentation. I adore the approach through the fantasy. I think it's something that schools need and that a lot of IT companies should actually pick up on. I think, like, a personal question from my side, since the use of gadgets is so immense in the last years, and especially small children, they can actually sometimes use gadgets better than older people. With the changing educational system all over the world, with more and more remote classes, online related topics, do you think the testing and security topic in general should be implemented in the educational system?
Yeah, I think it should be, and it is being implemented. So depending on the country, of course, and so on, how much it is, but IT skills in general are nowadays a part of education system in schools in many countries. Sometimes it includes different aspects like coding, sometimes security, as you say, sometimes other special topics, sometimes usability. Testing, as I said, not yet. I hope it will come. It's next on the line. Maybe I can help there a little bit with this. But yeah, it definitely should be part of it. I think critical thinking skills in general, and that's what I would take out of testing. Testing in an abstract concept is actually critical thinking, right? That is a skill for everybody, not only people who deal with software, who build software, which is less than those people who use it. But critical thinking is for everybody. So while you actually learn to test and understand software, you can actually learn to be a better person. You learn media reading skills, for example, in the same go. So yeah.
Thank you. We have one more question from Simon. Is there a gap in the learning between the younger children you seem to be targeting and the older teenagers?
Yeah, I think the same gap of not having testing education to people who are not adults. I think it's for all ages. So my book actually works for anyone from 10 to adult quite nicely, even for adults actually. Lots of my pilot readers and people who have already bought the Finnish version say that it's even for adults it's lots of fun to see the comparison. They may even learn something new as a tester, but it's also fun to notice the comparisons. But if you think about somebody who is 10 years or who is, let's say, 15 years, the same gaps are there. They don't know about testing. They may know about Python coding, for example, but nobody has thought about testing to them. So I think maybe my approach doesn't work as well for 18-year-olds. Maybe it is indeed with 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds. Remains to be seen. but at least people, the teachers who have asked, who do they teach? What kind of age groups they teach with this material, and they actually mention the whole age range from 10 to 15. Yeah, that's the topic.
Thank you. And we have one more from Olivier. This is amazing, Kari. How about augmented reality as a next step?
Interesting. I've been actually thinking about a game of some sorts using the same characters. It could be just a mobile game. It could be also using the augmented reality. Of course, the smaller you start, the easier you have in creating a game. Augmented reality game sounds like a fairly big step, but a game, yes. I'm very open for ideas, and thank you for a good proposal.
Great, thank you. So there's no more questions here. I really enjoyed the presentation. It's like I said, it's a very, very interesting topic with a lot of my friends having kids and they are going into the whole tech world. I think this is something that really needs to be emphasized on in the next months and years. So I can only just thank you a bunch for that really, really cool presentation. And I hope that other people will send you their dragons soon.
Exactly. And always good to get some feedback, and especially feedback if you get a book to some children. And actually, I just heard last week calling to a friend of mine who had given the book to her son. I got the best possible feedback, I think, which was that the kid said that after reading the book, I want to be a software tester when I grow up.
That's amazing.
That is pretty amazing.
That is amazing. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I hope I see you soon, and enjoy the rest of the Congress.
Thank you.
And enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much, Kari.
Thank you.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.